Okay, just a short lesson, I think, this time. I want to tell you about more extensions we can use. We've looked at the seventh, but I want to look at ninths and 13ths. Now, these are things that don't come up a ton for us, to be totally honest. Um, but I want you to be aware that they exist and that you can use them if you want to. Um, but I don't want to spend a lot of time on them because it'll be less useful to you than some of the other stuff that we're going to work on soon. So we've looked at sevenths. Let's zoom in on this here a little bit. Okay, so we're still in E minor, and this is our diatonic chord progression. So all our chords that exist naturally in the key of E minor with the sevenths in them. Okay, so that was going root, third, fifth, seventh. So we skip a note. We skip the second, we go to the third. We skip the fourth, we go to the fifth. We skip the sixth, we go to the seventh, right? We can keep going. We can skip 8 and go to 9, right? So you might say to yourself, but there's only 8 notes in the scale if we repeat the root. Let's go back to our scale and look at it. Here's our scale. So if we go root, third, fifth, seventh, we're out of notes, right? Not exactly. What we have to do is go up another octave. So I'm going to copy this. Ooh, lovely. So now we're going E to E to E. So we have 2 full octaves. That's an octave, including that note. And that's an octave. So we have 2 octaves. Now we can keep going up higher. So we have root, third, fifth, seventh. There's the root again, and the ninth. So now we would call that the ninth. Now you might be saying, wait, the ninth is the same as the second. Why don't we call it a second? Well, a second's kind of a different thing. We'll look at seconds in a bit. But more importantly, we call it the ninth because we're going to try to put it on the top. When we spell the chord, we're going to put it on the top above all of the other notes. That makes it a ninth. So let's do it. So here we have sevenths, and we're going to keep on going. So here would be the eighth, and here would be the ninth. Eighth, ninth. I'm just going up the scale. Eighth, ninth, eighth, ninth, eighth, ninth, eighth, ninth, eighth, ninth, eighth, ninth. Okay, now we have 9 chords, we would call these. Everything works the same as 7th chords, except we have 5 notes now, and these are called 9th chords. Let's hear what our 9th chords sound like. So you can hear how we're getting closer and closer to jazz sound, right? Our chords are getting thicker and thicker, and that makes them less simple. And in most dance music and electronic music in general, pop music in general, we like our chords to be relatively simple. We'll have sevenths in there, ninths less so much, but even less so than that would be 13ths. 13ths are come up a lot. So let's go back to our scale. So we have root, third, fifth, seventh, ninth, 10, 11th. We do 11ths, but more common than 11ths, oddly enough, is 13ths. Because an 11th would be a fourth if we went down an octave, in the same way that a ninth was a second. So 11ths happen. We do use 11th chords, but much more common is a 13th chord. So let's keep going. 11, this would be 12, and 13. So that would be a C. So if we take that all the way down, that's going to be a sixth if it was low. So we're going to add in a sixth, one of the notes we skipped over, just like the second. So we like to add in these sixths. This is when we start to get real jazzy. So let's do it. So remember, I need to go up 2 scale degrees to get this. So sorry, 2 chord tones to get this, because I'm going to skip over the 11th for now. So we left off on the 9th. Here's 10, 11, 12, 13, 10, 11, 12, 13. And then I'm just going to put these in for us. That's the 13th, 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 and 13th. Now you might think to yourself, how did I just figure those out so fast? The reason is, once I did this first one, then I can pretty much just count up the E minor scale, right, from here, and all my notes will be right as long as I keep the pattern in mind. So I was able to remember that there's only one sharp here, and it's this one. The rest are all white notes. So I just had to keep that in mind while I was going up here and make sure that I got that note as the sharp, and the rest were white notes. So then I just counted up the scale, starting on C, but counting the E minor scale. And that got me my 13th chords. Okay, so let's hear these. Excellent. Let's hear the same thing down an octave. So I think I'm losing some notes in the upper register there, just from my samples. Cool. So now we're starting to get real jazzy, right? Now we can modify these as well. A lot of the time, like in like a jazz tune, you'll see a chord written and then it says flat 13. That means like you're gonna add a 13, but it wants a flat 13. So it wants, like, instead of a normal 13, flat 13. Pull it down a half step. That's what that means. When you see flat and then a number, it means pull that down. So these are just more chord options we can do. We could flat all of these 13ths, and then we make a whole string of flat 13 chords, and it's gonna sound pretty weird. I would be surprised if you had a use for this trick, but I'm gonna show it to you anyway. Here we go. There are some good chords in there, especially this first one I really liked. That would be E minor 9 with a flat 13 is what we would call it. I wouldn't call it an E13 because it doesn't have a full 13th in it. It has a flat 13th. So it's an E minor 9 with a flat 13th. So what that would look like if you came across it is, it would be written this way. E minor 9, and then in parentheses, flat 13. So the more numbers you see here, it's telling you degrees above this. So it wants a ninth, which is 9 scale degrees above E, and the 13th is 13 scale degrees above E, but it wants you to flat it by a half step. So that's ninths and 13ths. You won't come across them too much, but I think in this next thing we're going to do, it'll be useful to us to know how to figure out these chords. So off to the next one.